What does the anniversary of that loss mean to you, and what does it sometimes can mean to other people in general?
Well, it's amazing how our nervous system can recognize dates sometimes before we even look at the calendar. Speaking of that, like tomorrow is my daughter's birthday, and so she today was, just even more emotional. And she's like, Mom, I don't get it. And I'm like, well, it's your birthday and you wish your dad was here. And so anniversaries can, bring on though that it's almost like you're reliving the day that it happened. And so it can bring on many emotions. And for people that have not, dove deep into some of the internal messages we get, those internal messages and those beliefs start to creep back up, of like the loneliness and not knowing who we are. And so those can come up too by anniversaries. And so for myself, though, because I've done some work around my grief, I now know, how to, I ground myself very often throughout the days. And on those anniversary days, I will probably ground myself a little bit more than I usually do. And just connect to myself and allow myself grace on those days.
I know sometimes when someone has shared grief, I'll say online, because that seems to be the new form of therapy these days, right?
Right.
Instead of the maybe the conversation with a therapist on their sofa, you're just in your bedroom with your phone in the air and saying, please help me through this. When it comes to dates, what some people have shared, either the women I've worked with or the grief group that I'm a part of, is the build up to the actual day is more emotional than the day itself. Do you find that to be true, or explain that to us a little bit?
Yeah, I would say that that is definitely something I've experienced. And a lot it goes back to one, our nervous system. So our nervous system can go into the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And so it gets going. But then our thoughts. So thinking our thoughts going around that date. So many people that I work with are, their question is like, what am I supposed to do on that day? Especially if it's like the anniversary. They're like, how do we honor them, but then still get through the day? And so it becomes this overthinking loop of like, what should I be doing versus just allowing ourselves to just feel what's comfortable for us instead of overthinking it.
Could it be that sometimes the expectation of others and maybe even society in a way plays a role in how we should be feeling on that day?
Oh, so true. That goes into those belief systems, our perception of what others may think of us, of, like if we don't do something, and or if we are doing something, the perception of what people are thinking and what other people are going to say. And sometimes, even when comments are said, is how we interpret that. And then our own internal stories create this overthinking loop. And then that overthinking loop creates or intensifies our feelings. And so, oh, yes, it definitely. And people reading into social media posts or other things, it's how we interpret things, and then that gets into our own internal belief system as well.
I had someone share that they had their aunt passed away a number of years ago. I want to say maybe 10, because no, wow. How long have I had this house? It was before I had this house. So I want to say maybe 15 years ago. And what they shared is that they're grieving, they're going through the grief experience. And then they started to say, Trent, I'm starting to see this. I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to see this. And then a part of me was like thinking to myself, as I'm reflecting back on it, how much of that was actually a sign and how much of that was a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Meaning that you are searching for it. And therefore, because you're searching for something to be seen, whatever it is that came up on your radar, you're like, aha, that's what it is. Versus you just going about your day and it comes along. Do you see some people taking things either in a literal sense or because they're still part of the grief experience, grief journey, now they're going and they're looking for signs and things that maybe won't necessarily be true, but because they want it so bad, they see it.
Yes, yes. That goes along with that overthinking, because the more we think something, it becomes our reality. And what I mean by that is that, like, again, like what you're talking about, I use this example of, I don't know if anybody's ever played what I call the cloud game. You're sitting around, you're looking at the clouds, and someone says, "Hey, what do you see?" And everybody's like, "I don't know." And then all of a sudden, someone says, "I see an elephant." Now everybody sees the elephant because, again, is it that we actually see it, or is it because our brain is so focused on seeing it that that's exactly what we see? And that's exactly what you're talking about, is that the more our brain is thinking about something, it becomes our reality. And so then it becomes, we more focus on it, and then we see it more often, or we see it happening around us. And then our brain starts to say, yeah, see, I told you, type of thing.